One of the usual great joys of a Lions tour is the opportunity it gives us for silly rugby. The Lions is something free cricketers invented in 1888 for a laugh because they fancied an international tour of Australia and New Zealand but couldn't get any of the home nations to sanction it, and so it's only right that 133 years on, we're still honouring the original silliness by making elite professional athletes embrace the most batshit third team bullshit, wearing the number 10 shirt because it's the only one that'll fit, guys playing with stupid haircuts given to them by a bored teammate, or having an all-aggression flanker cover the centres because your entire backline are stuck in their hotel rooms. However, after a few weeks of chuck-about nonsense featuring the world superstars, 2021's trip out finally got the game it needed to give the silliness a grounding and both teams a much-needed warm-up for the epic test series coming up, as Rassie Erasmus dug into his endless bag of shithouse tricks and slung another one on the table for Warren Gatland to deal with, deploying a pretty full-strength team to play in the place of the kids and fringes the Lions were expecting. Warren Gatland and Rassie Erasmus might be the two best coaches in the world, and I think both of them will have gone to bed last Wednesday pretty happy with what they saw. This was one of the most fascinating matches I've watched in a long time, because it was a game defined as much by what the two teams weren't doing as what they were. I don't know if I've ever seen a game of rugby in my life where the scoreboard mattered less. The Lions turning over South Africa, and I'm just going to call them South Africa because if Rassie Erasmus isn't going to bother pretending, neither am I, on a 5-metre scrum was as big a win as South Africa showing they can close out a game in the last 10 minutes against a squad this stacked. The Springboks, I'm just going to call them the Springboks, getting through 10 straight minutes of goal line pressure, 2 men down, only conceding 1 try and holding onto their lead is more relevant than the try the Lions actually did score. As such, the questions I always ask, prefaced by "so," are a little different this week because, in the words of the other best coach in the world, Ted Lasso,
Sarah, I believe you can outscore your opponent and still lose, just like you can score less than them and win.
So, with that in mind, which of South Africa A and the British and Irish Lions actually won on Wednesday? I know that's a stupid question, just go with it. Both coaches emphasised how good it was to get a proper hit out ahead of the test, to have a game with test match intensity physicality ahead of time. And whilst both teams will have benefited equally, we probably learned slightly more about the Lions. Up until now, the team I'm just going to call Adam Beard's Barmy Army, let's be honest, have ripped through opposition on quality of execution instead of ideas, playing really basic rugby, playing it really well. During that opener at Murrayfield, the Lions operated a 1-3-2-2 pattern in attack. It's a structure, for anyone that didn't see my initial video, pioneered by Japan in the World Cup to help try and get go forward with a smaller pack. It's a shape that encourages each forward to pick dynamic lines, then puts it on the shoulders of the halfbacks to select which big lad is in the most space. However, since arriving in South Africa, their forward shape has reverted back to boring. It's 3-man pods standing near the ruck and in midfield, waiting to trug it up. The rugby the Lions have played this tour is as close as you can get to just doing hands down the line every phase in pro rugby these days. It's rugby so basic and old-fashioned, Clive Woodward can probably keep up. We have, though, seen a few interesting points. This move against the Lions that aren't the other Lions feels designed to try and catch out the South African defence, hoping the last defender will bite in as Nene likes his winger to do. But the other Lions do not defend in the same way as the Springboks, and instead they have to artificially manufacture the move around, and it requires a quick bit of thinking by Chris Harris to exploit the space behind for Lewis Rees-Zammit. They do something similar at the start of the second half against South Africa A. Knowing what a danger Pieter-Steph du Toit is and how he likes to blitz out a line, the Lions' backs stand incredibly deep. Here, Owen Farrell, Chris Harris, and then Faletau and Rees-Zammit are all pretty well disguised. There's someone in front of them, they're picking their lines late, there's multiple people the previous player could pass to. You don't necessarily know if the ball's coming to them. But Elliot Daly is the middle link man, and he is obvious. He's so obvious. The ball is so clearly going to go for him at some point. It's when, not if. This is deliberate because Elliot Daly is bait for Pieter-Steph du Toit to take. The Lions are giving du Toit an easy target to try and take him out the game. He's always going to target someone hard, so they make sure it's Daly. This creates a huge amount of space. Harris does brilliantly, then Faletau does just Faletau things, and Zammit can almost put Curry in for a try, but for a great cover tackle. It's superb, and you can be certain the Lions will have more tricks up their sleeve to try and turn Du Toit's aggressive defence against the box. But when it comes to the Lions' attack, these are exceptions, not the rule. The emphasis on offloading feels like a red herring. It's an easy way to unpick less organised defences if your skill level is high enough, but Townsend teams have never been huge on it in anything but broken play, and it almost feels like the Lions are trying to lure South Africa into a trap, hoping they'll do double tackles to wrap up the ball, committing extra defenders. We saw that a few times in this game where the Springboks committed extra men around the tackle to make sure no line could get the ball away. Look at this, it's quite a smart example with Steyn just getting himself, just blocking the pass, meaning he isn't committed at all. But otherwise, the Lions spent Wednesday's 80 showing very, very little in attack. On the last Lions tour, Warren Gatland was open about the fact that he didn't give a shit if they lost every warm-up game if it meant they took 2 wins in the Test series. And this time, he's been upfront about the fact that he intends to hide things back for the Tests, and he doesn't want to give the Springboks anything to analyse until it's too late. The moment the Lions crossed the 22-metre boundary, they rarely looked further than the ruck. They were picking and going and popping it short, even from 20 metres out. It might be Owen Farrell at 10, but it feels more likely the Lions are sitting on anything remotely interesting they may want to try in the 22. Right after that chance for Curry, the Lions don't even bother setting up. They just go straight for a cross kick, no penalty advantage. It isn't on, it isn't a try, but it doesn't give anything away at all. It kind of gives them a 50-50 shot at a try without having to do anything. The 10s in the squad are Dan Biggar, Finn Russell and Owen Farrell. Of course the cross kick is always going to be an option, and any team will always try pick and goes near the line when they're 1 or 2 metres out. These were options on the attack Rassie Erasmus had already anticipated, and they were all the Lions showed. All that said, however, interestingly, the Lions do snap into shape once or twice in the game. Just look here. After some good continuity gets them go forward, the Lions work it to the touchline, and eventually line up here in exactly the shape they adopted for Tyke Burns' try against Japan, which proved so dynamic and able to break an opposition down. It's the shape I expect we'll see them utilise for most of the time in the attack in the Test series. But in this example, they can't use it because Sinclair knocks on Tojo's pass and the chance is gone. Then pulling it out, however, suggests the Lions intend to shake up their structure based on momentum on how they're going forward. This go forward means more novel attacking alignments. That's likely a part of what Gatland wanted to test out in this game. Can they utilise that momentum and shift shape on the fly? And the answer is kinda, yeah, they just need to work on the handling a bit when they do it. But whilst the Lions are looking to keep an element of surprise on their side, Jacques Nijneiber said before the Georgia game they intend to hide nothing. How the Springboks played against Georgia, how the Springboks played as South Africa A, is how they intend to face the Lions. It's a beautifully, wonderfully Rassie Erasmus thing to do. Their style of play is inherently confrontational, and this is just laying down the challenge. This is what's coming. You know what's coming. Just try and stop it. That goes for both the physical forward play and the physio finesse behind, because frankly, a lifetime's worth of luck is about the only thing that'll ever stop Cheslin Colby if you give him half an inch. And that half inch was well earned by his pack. After Faletau fumbles the ball for the first time in his life, the Boks create a kind of optical illusion. Instead of box kicking, Farrell calls the ball out fast, thinking he spotted an overlap, with 2 forwards in midfield and only Lukanyuam outside, up against both Harris and Rees-Zammit out of shot. The Lions have numbers, but it's not just a forward, it's Peter Steph de bloody toy. And his eyes are on Farrell. It takes Du Toit, and I timed this, a 12th of a second to work out what Farrell is going to do. The way he catches the ball says he isn't going to kick. The way he turns his body means he isn't going to pass to Arquis. And so Du Toit can pelt himself at Elliot Daly. And Manny seems very desperate to befriend. Du Toit cuts off all his time, meaning any pass to Harris would be forward. Daly has no choice but to kick and no time to aim where it's going. Daly has an absolute cannon of a boot, and when he hits and hope, it sometimes results in this.
Daly with that giant-sized left boot of his into the bin. Now what is it? Did he win a coconut for that?
So he just thumps it towards the touchline, hopes there's a bin nearby, except there isn't a bin and he doesn't get it to the touchline. He gets it to Cheslin bloody Colby. And Cheslin Colby now has 4 seconds and several inches to work out what he is going to do. For any South Africans watching, right, let's just cut away for a second, who don't know the Lions squad inside out. Scotland centre Chris Harris made this tour because he is the best defensive back in Europe. He never misses the tackle and he thinks before he makes every one, defending with intelligence before physicality. And this might have just been his undoing. It's a lesson taught to most modern fullbacks. It's something Stuart Hogg in particular talks about a lot. When looking to counterattack, check for your own men. They're the only guys who won't try and tackle you unless you're playing against Matthew Morgan. So try and run as close to them as possible and hope they just kind of get slightly in the opposition's way in a kind of like 95% legal manner. The retreating player doesn't have to move so long as they don't move into a defender. So Chris Harris spots the Springbok in front of Colby. As I've said, he's an incredibly intelligent defender and he's expecting Colby to try and use his teammate as an obstacle to help him slip through. Harris is checking, ready for it, but instead Colby does the opposite. He snaps right. He does something so unintuitive but with such agility. It's brilliant. Harris could never see it coming and he leaves him for dead, breaking the Lions wide open. And from there, it's fairly simple. The Kanyuam is on hand to take the pass this time, no doubt tempted to look for Makazole anyway. The other try showed some similar elements, the pressure on the kick and then the really smart blocking line. Watch Damian Delande's face, his head, his eyes here. He knows exactly where Farrell is, but he goes out of his way to make sure he never looks at him in case the TMO steps in. He takes away any culpability. There's been some confusion between UK and SA rugby Twitters this week on the meaning of the word shithousery, but this qualifies. It's cheeky, intelligent, and most importantly, it's sublime and results in a score for Spew and Kosi. However, even beyond the general test mass intensity, greater accuracy, blah 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 stuff, this try would not be scored in the test. If we pause it right here as the kick is blocked, all 8 Lions forwards are here, in this area around the ruck. If the Lions were deploying the 1-3-2-2 structure they played against Japan, the forwards would instead be positioned more around here. Look at this. It'd be a bit more like this. For one, you've got more people to recover the ball when it's charged, but all game the Lions lack what are referred to as screen runners we'd expect from a modern team. That's these fellas, the guys in front of the backs who are kind of just lingering, sometimes giving a pass to those backs himself. Once again, they're obstacles, just something a defender has to run around to make a tackle. Gatland is so keen on nothing being given away, he's dropped what is now a real basic in professional rugby. Owen Farrell might have had a sloppy day, but that's largely on Gatland. By offering him no support, no blockers, no help, Gatland essentially put him under a level of pressure Tier 110 would never normally face, and just went, deal with it, lol. Dan Bigger, Finn Russell, Marcus Smith would have had an equally difficult day under the same circumstances up against defence as angry as a wound-up Springboks. Farrell does have a very nice and very thin touch here. It's a scrum move designed to target, once again, the Springboks in particular is designed for their defence. The idea is to engage the midfield so they can flood men around Cheslin Kolbe on the far wing, trying to draw the blitzing winger in. It all hinges on this by Farrell. Murray's line converges with Watson's, meaning he can twist the ball round like so the box midfield are watching either Watson or Arkey coming on this hard line here. They stay flat, they don't help out. Kolbe, who spots Harris and sprints in. As ever, Kolbe's job is not to stop the attacker, it's to stop the attack. And whilst he gets boomfarred, he brings it to a grinding halt. Harris is forced to go inside and the defence given time to drift and cover the overlap is no longer there. But whilst Harris is excellent and having a very good tour, distribution has never been his strong suit. You wonder if Elliot Daly was playing 13 in the situation, or if Daly and Harris just swapped for this one passage, it might open things up a little more. This looks like a great tackle bust by Harris, but it's actually the Springbok system working perfectly. And that's why it's the best in the world. Even when you make a positive contribution, they often work against you, and the Lions will need to be a fair bit sharper if they want to pull any points out of these opportunities. As for the Boks' own attack, after employing their more attacking plan against Georgia, we saw Rassie Erasmus's World Cup Plan A come back for South Africa A, right from the start of the game. As a reminder, right, the Boks' main plan is not about territory or possession, it's about momentum. It's about always being the team on top, whether or not you have the ball. So, Faf's kick here is near perfect. It drags Williams really far forwards, but it's far enough back that his support won't be able to get behind him in time when he catches the ball to help out in the breakdown. It leaves Williams isolated and Van Staden able to get over the ball and turn it over. Before he's even won it, de Klerk has pointed wide, noting the Lions are undefended on the other touchline, and once it is theirs, they go for exactly that. Interestingly, right, Cheslin Kolbe slots into the Villy LaRue role here and becomes the expendable distributor to get it wide right away. Nothing much comes of it, but it serves as a statement as a few interesting points. A lot of reaction to this game, the first half in particular, was how hard the Springboks bossed the breakdown. But these are a very similar set of breakdowns. South Africa really targeted not every ball, but the balls directly following kicks. Often, they'd forget to even compete in the air and just send a legion in afterwards, blasting the breakdown and winning it back. The Lions did learn to negate this by doing this kind of thing, daily running sideways until he can link up with support and avoid the trap, but far too often they fell in. After a great kick here by Farrell, and Kosi has to clear under pressure and it gives Williams loads of time to counter. He runs back towards the support, but Mostert smashes Sinclair while he's getting into position, and it leaves Williams isolated, hit hard by a forward and then ultimately turned over. Dweeber has a charge and then it comes. Last week, I identified the Lions are leaving a small area of dead space behind the blindside winger, gambling on the fact the Springboks over that last World Cup did not kick once in or around the 22. Knowing it may well be there, LaRue identifies the space and calls for the kick, de Klerk hitting it near perfectly, and they almost create a try. This became a theme throughout the entire game. South Africa finding space over and over again, kicking within 30 metres of the line, more in that 180 minutes than they have in the 25 previous games under Rassie Erasmus. And it really worked. South Africa kept hitting this space. Opposition against the Lions this tour have scarcely kicked, too seduced by the idea of creating a try against the fabled touring team. But after a turnover, the best ball to attack off, Willie LaRue pumps it long. Watson would have covered any overlap here, but this kick goes over his head. This both catches out complacency from the Lions and maybe force them to make a decision, maybe think about changing how they defend next time. It might be the following week Watson slides back earlier. Do the Lions continue to gamble and leave space in behind, or do they twist up their defence just 1 week out from the tests? If Watson had dropped deeper, the Boks may have been able to use this overlap. It's the kind of sly tactic that can only be a win-win for the Springboks, because this game was so full of little wins, far more than we saw losses for either side. That the Lions could win a scrum 5 against the Head is an objective loss for South Africa, but that's about the only one. And likewise, the only real loss for the Lions is the fact that they actually lost the game, which is a stupid sentence. I know that, and I know it's the kind of thing that anyone trying to point out how full of shit I am will start on Twitter at least once a week for about 4 years, but South Africa won, but they did so probably playing about 80% of the game plan they'll bring on Saturday with about 70% of the team. The Lions played about 30% of the game plan with about 50% of the team, but the areas in which they had no excuses, the area in which those 30% came from, in which they could most easily or likely show their hand, the backfield, the breakdown, were the ones in which they struggled. So you wonder how big a difference the remaining 120% can make. But they also got a pretty good impression of how South Africa intend to attack those two weaknesses ahead of the moment it really matters, which might be worth something with 10 days to pore over the footage. The Lions will not be this inaccurate next week, but South Africa, you feel, still have a few gears to go up. The Georgia game shook off a lot of rust, and this match got the wheels turning proper. Erasmus arranged an extra fixture because he felt they didn't have enough prep time. You do wonder, will the Boks be able to get from here, which was a very good standard, to their World Cup final best ahead of next week? As such, this first test might be the Lions' best chance of catching the Saffers cold, even with the likes of Sia Khaleesi and Andre Pollard pulling through from COVID isolation in time to play. But the last time we saw a team come back in a series after losing the first Lions test was 1989, which is now a really, really long time ago. And yet, you can't help but feel if anyone can do it, it's this Springbok side, a team this scary, fierce and physical, who are aiming to make the Lions look like they never stop playing that silly rugby. Thank you for watching that. I hope you enjoyed it. I apologise for the fact it took so long to get around to covering this game. In the end, I decided it was best as kind of a first test preview because it was taking a long time and it's been a long tiring period, but we don't need to go into that. Thank you for watching that. There's going to be loads more coming, obviously, when the tests begin, and I'll be looking at those in full each week as they happen, as they go on. So please stick around for that. Thank you to everyone that supports the channel on Patreon. Thank you to everyone that's kept stuff going. I'm going to be on Springbok Saturday the next couple of weekends, which is on all of the South African Rugby Union's media channels immediately before kickoffs, about 15-20 minutes beforehand if you want to have a look at those. So please have a fun round. Hopefully there's some nice, enjoyable things, and I'll see you next week for the first test.